Rinzai and Leanne Stone have gained inspiration from terrible tragedy. The two have strengthened their marriage and family despite the death of their infant son last year, and never miss an opportunity to share the lessons they learned from him, both in life and death.
If our marriage hadn't been built on the foundation it was built on, and if we hadn't given up control of the situation to God, our marriage wouldn't have been able to hold up through the process.
We met my freshman year. My big sis in the house went to high school with Rinzai, and I'd been dating a guy, and we broke up, and she said, "You gotta meet this guy. It's a friend of mine." I was like, "Oh, whatever."
So I went and saw her play water polo.
I forgot about that.
For a sorority. I brought a friend along. I said, if this deal's a dud, we can get out of here quick. If you're going to be introduced, why not meet them in their swimsuit for the first time?
Which is horribly embarrassing. And a jersey and an inner tube strapped around you, because we're all good at water polo at the Kappa House. It was intramurals. So I didn't know he was coming. And so he shows up, and I just was like, oh my gosh, what a horrible time.
Our first date was over at my house on Valentine's morning. I invited her over. I called her, I'm an early riser. She's not.
So we'd never been on a date before, and he calls.
I called it probably.
I remember in my dorm room, I was like,
I remember
hello?
It seemed like it was early. So I said, well, why don't you come over? And so I made my mother's famous, this is the way to get a girl, pink dyed homemade biscuits in heart shapes.
I was like, who is this guy?
And so we had our first date on Valentine's Day when she was 19 and I was 21. And here we are.
We dated a couple months, and, summer came. I was going back to live with my parents in summer. He was staying in Norman. I was 19, he was 21, and, it just kind of ended. And it wasn't anything, awful or tragic or anything, but we just were like, okay, we'll see maybe what happens when school comes back around. And, life just kind of went on. But I always remember thinking, this guy is great. So he ends up moving back to Norman, and we were just friends. I mean, really, truly friends. He was dating someone else, I was dating someone else, but, if something exciting happened, I called him. It was purely innocent and a nice friend to have. So I feel like it's kind of a neat story of dating, really liked this guy, didn't talk, truly built a friendship for like 6 months, and then one day I realized, well, I'm not dating anyone, and you're not dating anyone, and we just started dating. When you have to talk on the phone, which neither one of us really like to do, you have to communicate, and that's what we did. Isaiah was born June 15th, 2009.
Yeah, and he lived 333 days. We went weeks and then months trying to figure out why he couldn't get comfortable. We got these little glimpses of his personality when he wasn't in pain. Isaiah was like Leanne in that he controlled the room he was in, whether he was happy or sad. He had his first seizure in the end of October. We were giving him a bath, and we were just kind of chatting. We gave him a bath in the center island in our kitchen, and he had a grand mal seizure. We spent days in doctor's offices trying to get our arms around it. We ended up going to Texas to probably the leading center in the world for epilepsy at Texas Children's Hospital, and our physician was the lead physician in the group. So we found the right place to go, and they diagnosed him with epilepsy. But the prognosis was never that we might lose our child. The prognosis was always we just got to get our arms around it. It was a grueling, confusing, gut-wrenching period in our life. One thing I think Leanne and I did a good job of is we tried to keep balance. And we tried, when we would wake up, we wouldn't know what we were in for. We wouldn't know whether we were going to spend the day in the hospital. We wouldn't know if we were going to have a great day. Well, there were quite a few days where both of us were just beat down and depressed. And then this little boy is just happy as a clam. No seizures, smiling, laughing. And so it was a real lesson in living each day to its fullest.
He taught us that we're stronger than you could ever think you could be. When you think you're at your lowest, you gotta find it in yourself to just push through and to not wallow in your pity. You gotta deal with what you've got, and then you gotta move on. because you can't live your life, we talk about this a lot, like in regrets and nostalgia and remember wins and this and that. The day he died, we chose to not put a spin on it. It was the longest day ever, but it was like 11:30 in the morning, and we were at our house, and people, had been showing up, and our minister had come over, and Renza and I stole a moment back in our room, and I remember he grabbed my hand and he said, don't leave my side. We've got to stick together. It's going to be tough. And I just remember thinking, you're absolutely right. Like, we're going to get through this because we have each other, because we have faith in God, and because we have another baby that needs us.